I want to show you something. You see this book right here? This is an endocrinology book. On page 84, we have this body type right here, and you could see this round face. I used to have this. I mean, my face was round, it was swollen, I had puffiness underneath my eyes. I had no idea it was not normal until I got rid of it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that wasn't normal. So today I'm going to show you exactly what this is and how to get rid of it pretty simply. But this particular picture is in the chapter on a condition called Cushing syndrome. And one of the symptoms is moon face. Now, Cushing syndrome is basically high levels of cortisol, and cortisol is a stress hormone. Now, with cortisol, you have your body's production of cortisol, and if it's too high over a long period of time, that could be the problem. Or you're taking a medication that's a synthetic version of cortisol. It's called Prednisone. And in fact, if you've ever seen a picture of Jerry Lewis, when he took Prednisone, his face just swelled up like that. And what's also interesting is I had Prednisone every single year for probably 10 years straight, starting in my 20s and my 30s, from getting this darn poison ivy every year. So whether that contributed to it or something else, I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I do want to share what I know on this topic. Now, what's interesting about cortisol is cortisol has the power to redistribute where the fat goes in the body. It starts going around the face and in this part right here called the midsection. So belly fat. Sometimes over time, if you start getting that buffalo hump on the back there, and also red cheeks, thinner legs, weak muscles in the legs, especially the thigh muscle. You start losing the gluteus maximus, the butt muscle right here. Other things that happen is your cholesterol and your lipids start going higher. You start losing potassium and retaining sodium. So there goes your blood pressure. It's going to go straight up. What's also interesting is your vitamin D level goes down. The immune system usually suffers. And they've even tested cortisol levels. And when people get emotionally upset, the cortisol goes straight up and vertical. So if someone is always or chronically emotionally upset, they're going to have high levels of cortisol. This next part is very interesting because the cortisol itself is not causing the face to look like a moon face, okay? It's indirectly doing it. That hormone starts to break down your own proteins, starting with your thigh muscles and your butt muscle, and it turns that into glucose or sugar. And that's coming from the protein. And so your body is making new sugar, not out of the dietary sugar. I mean, this does not just happen in women, it happens in men too. You can see the adrenal glands are basically flooding the midsection with cortisol, and then that turns into sugar and then fat. So insulin is a fat storing hormone. In the presence of just a little bit too much insulin, you're not going to be able to lose fat. And you go to the doctor and they might say, well, you just need to lose weight, right? Lose weight, go on a diet. But stress can activate insulin. When people have high levels of insulin, they get something called metabolic syndrome. What is that? That is a combination of high cholesterol, hypertension, and high blood glucose. All of that comes from too much insulin. Over-exercising. Now, I had this lady come in my office once and I had her do a little exercise and her pulse rate went up to 150, okay? And then I had her come back the next day. The pulse rate was still at 150. I was like, what the heck? Her recovery was terrible. And that was a situation because typically in a healthy body, you'll raise the pulse rate and it comes down. So if someone like that with poor recovery would continue to exercise every day, it would just create a tremendous amount of stress and cortisol in the body. But also lack of sleep will raise your cortisol. Think about this. When you don't sleep, you're hungry. Your appetite goes up. But boy, when you get a good night's rest, oh my gosh, you're not hungry as much. Cravings go away. You're doing great. And then you have something like surgery and trauma and being in pain can also increase cortisol. Not to mention alcohol and even certain medications. All right, so those are the triggers. But now what about insulin? What increases insulin? Carbohydrates. This is a really big confusion with carbohydrates because when you do keto, okay, ketogenic diet, this is basically you're getting your body to burn fat. They will tell you to reduce your carbs below 50 grams. There's a lot of confusion on what a carb is. A carb makes up several things. One is fiber. Fiber is a carbohydrate. Sugar is a carbohydrate. But if we take something like this, right? This is a Pop-Tart, okay? And we look at the total carbs, we have 78 carbs. And then we have 42 sugars. Okay, so a sugar is a carb. And if we deduct the fiber and the sugar from the carb, it leaves us with 34 additional grams of something. What is that something? A lot of people don't know what that is. Well, that something is starch. Usually when you're talking about junk food, you're talking about something like this starch, cornstarch. This is why it's so important to read the ingredients, okay? Not just this other thing right here, but the ingredients to see what you're eating. But there's some other things that can increase insulin that you need to know about. Frequent eating. If you're snacking a lot, you're raising insulin. But what if it's not carbohydrates? Doesn't matter. If you're eating, you're going to raise insulin to a certain degree. And so the frequency of eating is a killer. Seed oils, soy, corn, canola, cottonseed, safflower, sunflower seed. Those can actually really mess up your insulin as well. These next few are very interesting. Nutrient deficiencies, like a B1 deficiency, magnesium deficiency, and a vitamin D deficiency can all indirectly start elevating insulin because those are the key nutrients that allow insulin to work. And when you're deficient, you have more problems with that hormone. And of course, the last one is medications, especially by taking insulin. They used to do what's called insulin shock therapy. Wow, insulin shock therapy. What is that? They would inject people with tremendous amounts of insulin, put them in a coma, wake them up a few weeks later as their therapy for mental illness, and they would wake up fat. Incredible. They used to do that. Okay, so what do we do to get the face back to normal, okay? Because it's not that your bones are round like that. Your face has layers of fat on it. So the first thing to do is to start eating less frequently by cutting out the snacks between the meals. That alone will be huge, okay? And then what you need to do is do intermittent fasting, which is you're going to start reducing the number of meals. I would recommend starting out with 2 meals a day. And when you wake up in the morning, try to go as long as you can before you eat the first meal, okay? And then maybe it's like 11 o'clock or even 12, have your first meal, and then have your dinner. Now you're at 2 meals a day. That's going to be huge because you're going to allow your body to fast. And when you're fasting, you're forcing your body to reduce insulin and use your own fat as fuel. Because what we want to do is we want to force our body to use up the fat around our face, which will come off first before the belly. So it's not going to take long to reshape the face. If you ever look at a diabetic that's just filled with sugar in their blood, they're just waterlogged, especially in their lower legs. So when you do this, you're going to lose a lot of water weight initially, probably 11 pounds of water weight in the first week or two. And then your weight loss is going to be down and you're going to think, oh my gosh, I'm not losing weight anymore. No, you have to get rid of the water first and then you'll start burning more fat, which is a lot less. You can't burn 11 pounds of fat per week. The most is going to be 2 pounds. But for most people, it might be 1 pound a week. So that's intermittent fasting. And then number 2, you want to start changing the diet. You want to start cutting down the carbs, very specifically sugar and starches. If you want a little card cutout that you can put in your wallet to show you what to avoid, I'll put the link down below. Okay, you just print it out, cut it out, put it in your wallet, and now you can see what you should avoid. Number 3, increase your protein. Your body needs a certain amount of protein to really fix all these issues. Plant source protein powders and all that stuff, it doesn't really work. You need like a high quality meat protein. And the highest quality meat that you could possibly eat is grass fed. It could be beef, it could be lamb, it could be goat, but grass fed is what you want to do. Number 4, stress. Okay, long walks every day. Your exercise program should be not too frequent if you're doing higher intensity. I would do also things like physical work because you're taking your mind off something versus walking on a treadmill, reading your cell phone. I really think the cell phone stresses people out more than anything. So you have to take part of the day and just put it to the side, go for your walk without any cell phone, anything, because these cell phones give off EMF waves, electromagnetic fields, and that can raise cortisol. And then the last thing, and this is really important, is try to get some extra sleep. Even if you wake up in the middle of the night, go back to bed and try to sleep in a little bit. That'll be so important. I used to really push it and think I can get away with it. I'd get up at 4. Now I sleep in more, so I'm trying to get like 8 hours of sleep. I should have done that a long time ago. I highly recommend it. I know people have to get a lot of stuff done, but the sleep will allow you to focus and it keeps you a lot healthier. So lastly, click the link down below to get that little card so you can cut it out and keep it in your wallet and it'll make things really easy.